My darling mother-in-law, who worked with me at the same company, was in for a pleasant surprise when she found out that I was one of its directors and had been promoted to CEO. While she was busy cleaning the floors in the corridor, she came up to me and said, "And this is my son who married you." Then, at that moment, one of the employees came up to me and said, "Hello, new CEO. My name is Anna, and my story begins 10 years ago when I graduated from the Faculty of Economics and decided to try my hand at a large company, Vostok. I never thought that my life would turn out so quirkily, with so many twists and surprises that fate seemed to throw up to me. On the day when I first crossed the threshold of the company's head office, I was one of many people applying for the position of junior analyst in the finance department. I remember how nervous I was before the interview. I thought about possible questions and answers, and I made sure that my strict, dark blue suit, which I bought especially for this occasion after spending almost my entire scholarship, was in order. For the last semester, the reception room was filled with such a sense of anticipation. Each person had a folder of documents on their lap, and in their eyes, there was a glimmer of hope, while in their hearts, there was a flutter of fear. I went through in my mind everything I knew about the company, its history, structure, recent financial indicators, and names of key managers. I prepared for this interview for several weeks, studied annual reports, and I had the pleasure of consulting some specialized literature with our wonderful teachers. Vostok Trade was considered one of the most promising employers in our city, and getting a position there, even as a junior specialist, was the dream of many graduates. When the secretary was an elegant woman in the country with stiff legs, I walked into a spacious office where 3 people were sitting at a long table. There were 2 men and a woman there. One of the men, who had gray hair and a sharp look about him, introduced himself as the company's financial director. The second young man with thin-trimmed glasses was the head of the analytical department, and the woman with perfect styling was Vera Nikolevna, with her brown hair and cold, appraising eyes. The head of the HR department was the one who made me nervous most of all. It seemed to penetrate right through, as if she were looking for all my weaknesses. I started the interview with a nervous shakiness, like I was on a tightrope, trying not to trip up. The interviewer asked me about my education, my work experience, and what I've learned from it. I answered as clearly as I could. I tried not to get overwhelmed, and I did my best to show that I was a good fit for the job. Then, the finance director asked me to do something I was a little better at than I expected. I was able to look at the company's financial indicators and understand them. And even the head of the analytical department seemed to be in agreement. But Vera Nikolevna was unfazed. She was just taking notes in her notebook every now and then. "Why our company?" she asked when the rest of the questions were finished. "What do you know about the East Trade, in addition to the fact that we are among the top 10 employers in the region?" I took a deep breath and began to talk about what I had learned about the company's history, its mission and values, its projects and achievements. I was really impressed by her innovative approach to business. I thought my words made an impression on the CFO and the head of the analytical department, but Vera Nikolevna remained impenetrable. When I finished, she asked another question that caught me off guard. "How do you imagine your future in 5 years if we hire you? Career, family, what are your priorities?" I was a little unsure about answering. It was a delicate question. If I say that I'm planning to focus on my career, they might think it's a bit too ambitious for someone just starting out. But if I mention that I want to start a family, they might worry that I won't be able to give my all to my work. I truly believe in finding a balance. After a long 5 years, I finally answered. I see myself as a professional who grew up inside the company, understanding her from the inside, and able to solve complex problems. But I also believe that a full life includes both personal happiness and family. I don't believe that one should exclude the other. Vera Nikolaevna smiled slightly for the first time in the entire interview, although her eyes remained cold. She said it was a good answer, theoretically correct. Life can be so unpredictable, can't it? Plans are always changing, and sometimes we have to make adjustments. For this interview, I had mixed feelings when I left the office. On the one hand, I felt like I'd done a pretty good job with the practical tasks and most of the questions. But on the other hand, Vera Nikolaevna's reaction, or rather, her absence, made me feel a bit unsure. A week later, I got a call from Vostok Trade, and they offered me a job as a junior analyst in the finance department. After a little chat with the company, I was taken to all the main departments, introduced to key employees, given a tour, and shown my new workplace. It was a nice desk, with a brand new. The computer was in the open office of the finance department. My direct supervisor, Sergei Pavlovich, was the same person who had been at my interview. He was calm, methodical, and very competent. He explained my responsibilities in detail, introduced me to my colleagues, and showed me how to work with the company's systems. I worked with great enthusiasm for the first few weeks. I came in before everyone else left, took on additional tasks, and tried to understand the subtleties of the company's business processes. Sometimes I felt like more people were watching me, but I didn't let it bother me. I had some really great colleagues who were super supportive. Some looked at me with a warm smile, some with a little bit of irony, and some with a hint of envy. But I didn't pay much attention to that. I was more focused on my work and on how to show the management that they had made the right choice when they picked me over the other candidates. Sergei Pavlovich quickly noticed how good I was at my job and started giving me more and more complex and interesting tasks. I worked with financial reports, analyzed market trends, and prepared presentations for management. I learned so much from the experience, absorbing new knowledge like a sponge. I was always eager to ask questions and admit when I made a mistake. My colleagues were so kind and understanding. They gradually got used to me, and some even began to ask for help, especially when it came to new computer programs or analytical tools. I was pretty good with technology, which really helped me out. During one of those ordinary working weeks when I'd been working for the company for almost 6 months and was starting to feel like a true part of the team, I had problems with my computer. The system froze, and I couldn't finish an important report. I called this department, and a few minutes later, a young man approached me. He was tall with dark hair pulled back in a careless ponytail and had thoughtful brown eyes. Maxim, he introduced himself, and I explained the problem to him. He sat down at my computer and started clicking on the keys, opening some system windows and leading commands. While he was working, I couldn't help but notice how confidently his long fingers moved. I couldn't resist asking, "Are you new to the company?" he asked, his eyes still on the screen. "Almost 6 months," I answered. "And you're 3 years old." He smiled warmly. "I started as an ordinary technician, and now I lead a small group." "Do you work a lot?" I was so surprised by the question about how everything is probably, and that I just noticed that you often stay late. "I also sometimes stay late." "I saw you in the office, and after 8 p.m., I was slightly embarrassed, not knowing how to react. I wondered if he was complimenting me, noting my hard work, or hinting that I was too involved in work. "A lot of tasks," I shrugged. "I want to do everything well." He nodded, as if understanding what I was talking about. "Is it ready?" he said, after a few minutes. "Hey, did you run into any trouble with the driver after the last update? Everything should be smooth sailing from here on out. If you do have any other issues, feel free to give me a ring. I'm always here and would love to help you out." He handed me a piece of paper with a handwritten phone number. I thanked him, but I wasn't too sure about this gesture. Maybe he was doing this with everyone. I'm so grateful to the employees who go above and beyond to ensure more efficient work and support. But in a week, when I ran into Maxim in the corporate dining room and he offered to join him for lunch, I began to suspect that his interest in me went beyond purely professional. We talked about work, about the company, about new technologies. The conversation flowed without tension and awkward pauses. Maxim, he was so smart and funny, and he listened well. He asked the right questions. When it ended, he casually asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime after work. I said yes. I was surprised at how spontaneous I was, because I was usually more careful in my relationships with colleagues, especially with men. But with him, it was different. Maxim's got a certain charm about him. There's something so genuine and straightforward about him that just makes you feel at ease. After work, we'd often meet for coffee and then take a stroll through the city at night. Then, we'd often have dinner at this cute little Italian restaurant, and afterwards, we'd often check out the latest exhibition of modern art. And then, on weekends, we'd head out to the countryside. Our relationship grew naturally and gradually, not forced or pressured, just kind of organically. You know, it's funny how we're like two puzzles that fit together perfectly. Despite all the differences in our characters and temperaments, we had surprisingly much in common in terms of our values, interests, and views on life. It was 6 months after we met one winter evening, when we were sitting by the fireplace in the country house of our mutual friends, Maxim. Out of the blue, you got down on one knee, and "You're the best thing that's ever happened in my life. I can't imagine a future without you. You're going to marry me?" I was stunned, even though somewhere in my heart, I might have expected this. We were so happy together, so comfortable with each other, that marriage seemed like a dream come true. A natural extension of our relationship, I whispered, feeling tears of happiness well up in my eyes. "Of course, yes." Our friends, who witnessed this moment, burst into applause and congratulations. It was one of the happiest evenings of my life. The next day, Maxim said that he wanted to introduce me to his mother. "She is very important to me." He explained that my father passed away when I was 15, and she raised me alone, working 2 jobs and making sacrifices so I could get a good education. "I really hope you like each other." I was more nervous before this meeting than before the interview at East Trade. How will Maxim's mother react to the fact that her only son is her mainstay, and Nadja decided to connect her life with a girl she has known for only 6 months? I'm worried that she might think we were hasty or thoughtless. I'm also worried that she might see me as a threat to the relationship with her son. The meeting was scheduled for Sunday lunch at Maxim's mother's apartment. I spent a long time choosing what to wear. I chose something not too formal, but also not too casual. I also chose what to bring: flowers, sweets, and wine. In the end, I decided on a simple but elegant lilac dress. As we walked up the stairs to the 4th-floor apartment and the building was old, but it had been well taken care of. It was right in the city center, and I could feel my heart beating fast with excitement. Maxim noticed how excited I was and squeezed my hand, smiling to make me feel better. "Everything will be fine," he said. "She will love you just like I did." The door opened even before Maxim called. and my mother must have heard our footsteps on the stairs. There was an elegant, middle-aged woman standing in the doorway with brown hair pulled back in a. She had a neat bun and piercing brown eyes that reminded me of Maxim's, but her gaze was a bit different. It didn't have the warmth and openness that I always liked about Maxim. It was a bit appraising, wary, and even a little skeptical. For a moment, I was a bit surprised to see her as Vera Nikolaevna, the head of the Human Resources Department at Vostok Trade. It was the same woman whose cold gaze had made me nervous for an interview almost a year ago. "Mom is Anna?" Maxim introduced me, but I didn't realize at first that he was talking about my mother. "Anna, this is my mother, Irina Pavlovna." I just now noticed that I never really paid attention to her last name. I always thought of her by her first name and her family name. And judging by her facial expression, she didn't think I was an ordinary employee of the financial department. She probably thought I was a girl about whom her son had told her. "Very nice." With a warm smile and a gentle hand, she accepted my bouquet and said, "Don't stand on the threshold." We walked into a cozy apartment, spotlessly clean and filled with tasteful antiques. On the walls, there were paintings, bookshelves bursting with classical literature and specialized publications on economics and management. On the coffee table, I noticed the latest issue of the Financial Bulletin, the same one where, 2 weeks ago, my article on innovative methods of financial analysis had been published. Lunch was prepared with the same loving care as everyone else in this house. Irina Pavlovna was an excellent hostess. The table was set with precision, the food was delicious, and the dishes were prepared with care. She clearly had a talent for choosing wines. We sat down and chatted, and she asked me about my education, family, and future plans. I answered with sincerity and care, but I could tell that every word was being carefully considered. She didn't seem to recognize me as an employee of the company, and I didn't bring up my role. I decided to follow her lead. Maybe she really didn't connect me with Anna, who worked in the East Trade. After all, there are hundreds of employees in a big company, and the head of HR doesn't have to remember everyone by sight, especially regular, everyday specialists. But as the conversation unfolded, I realized something else. I had this feeling that she knew me, but maybe she was hesitant to say so. It was really special when Maxim shared that I'm an analyst at a big company. "Oh, in which company?" Irina Pavlovna asked, her voice warm and friendly. "In the East Trade," Maxim answered. "You should know this company, Mum. You also work in a large business." "Yes, oh, of course I heard." She nodded, and I could tell she was a solid company with a good reputation. I was a little confused, though, because she didn't mention that she works in the East Trade. I could tell she was one of the key managers, but I wondered if she had just heard about the company. I was a little nervous, and I could see that my son was, too. After dinner, when we moved to the living room, I asked her about it. Coffee time. Irina Pavlovna started asking me about my thoughts on family life, the role of women, and the delicate balance between career and household responsibilities. Her questions were so thoughtful, like she was gently exploring if I'd ever consider putting my career before my family, or if my work might create any issues with her son. "I've noticed that nowadays, lots of girls are really focused on their careers," she said, taking a sip of her coffee from a beautiful porcelain cup. "What do you think, Anna?" "I think that every woman has the right to self-realization, whether it's family, career, creativity, or something else," I answered, trying to speak calmly and confidently, despite the growing internal tension. "And I believe that you can find a balance. You can successfully share different roles and responsibilities. It's not easy, but it is possible." especially if you are close by, supportive, understanding, and a partner who is on the same page. I looked at Maxim, and he smiled back at me. But in his smile, I noticed some nervousness. He clearly felt the tension between us, although he probably did not understand its true reason. Theoretically, this sounds great, Irina Pavlovna continued, her voice tinged with a subtle irony. But practice is often different. I've seen many cases of people who are ambitious and focus on women. In the end, they often end up destroying their families, leaving their husbands disappointed and their children disliked. Her words sounded like a warning, like a hidden threat. I felt a growing indignation inside. Who is she to judge me, even without really knowing? Why is she already Irina Pavlovna? I'm sorry if I upset you by saying that I thought you were a family destroyer. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to be honest about my desire to grow professionally, she said. I try to stay calm. I love your son so much, and I would never want to disappoint or hurt him. I know that career is important to you, and I respect that. But I'm also here for you. And I'm so grateful for our love, mutual respect, and support. I believe that we can overcome any difficulties, and I'm here for you, Maxim. Mom hurried to step in. I know Mom Anna well, and I really appreciate the ambition she's shown. We're going to support each other, and I'm confident we'll succeed. Irina Pavlovna looked at her son with a mix of emotions, love, maybe even a little skepticism. Of course, dear, she said. In a gentle tone, she said, I just want you both to know that starting a family is a big step that means giving and taking. At this point, the tough topic was put to one side, and the conversation shifted to a more neutral topic. But the feeling lingered. I had the impression that Irina Pavlovna didn't have the best opinion of me, and it was strange that she kept acting like she didn't know me at work. But as we were leaving, she was ever so polite and invited me to come and said she was happy to meet the girl her son had chosen. But her eyes were cold and appraising, as if she had already decided that I wasn't the right person for her son. I'm still trying to figure out how to convince him of this. On the way home, Maxim asked me what I thought about his mother. I didn't want to lie, but I couldn't tell the whole truth about my feelings about the strange fact that his mother works in the same company as us and for some reason doesn't tell anyone. The woman, she answered carefully, I'm strong, smart, and I have some great ideas about life. Maxim agreed. You know, she had a hard time after her father passed away. She was always ambitious and wanted to build a career, but she worked for a long time in positions below her qualifications because they gave her more flexibility and the opportunity to be near me. Only when I entered university did she manage to fully focus on her career. Maybe that's why she is so wary of women's career aspirations. She herself was forced to give up a lot for the sake of her family. This information made me look at Irina Pavlovna a little differently. To another. I'm starting to think that her negative attitude toward my career ambitions might not just be old-fashioned prejudice. It could be a reflection of her own complex experiences, her own victims, and so on. On Monday at work, I was really paying attention to Irina Pavlovna whenever I'd see her in the hallways or at meetings. She acted like we didn't know each other at all. She just gave me a polite nod and a formal good morning, Anna Sergeyevna, and that was it. There was no indication that just 2 days ago, we had lunch at the same table, talked about our thoughts on family and career. Her son made me an offer, and I accepted. It was strange, uncomfortable, and made me feel like I was part of some complex game with rules I didn't fully understand. I chose not to mention it to Irina Pavlovna or Maxim. At least I had to respect her decision. No matter how, it might seem a little strange, but for the next few weeks, Maxim and I were busy preparing for the wedding. We decided not to have a big celebration, but to limit ourselves to a small ceremony with our closest friends and relatives. I introduced Maxim to my parents. They lived in a small town with a friend. This introduction was much easier and warmer than the one with Irina Pavlovna. My parents are simple, warm-hearted people who immediately fell in love with Maxim because he was so sincere, respectful, and obviously loving. For me, in the following days, I tried my best to get to know Irina Pavlovna better. I wanted to understand her, and I hoped to find a way into her heart. I invited her to dinner parties and walks, and I'm happy to say that she was always perfectly polite. She tried to be attentive and respectful, but she kept her distance. I wish it had been different, but our relationship never became truly warm and trusting. And always at work, we continued to play the strange game of we barely know each other, even though many in the company already knew about my engagement to Maxim, an IT specialist from the third office, as he was called. Our wedding took place on a warm June day in a quaint little restaurant on the riverbank. Everything was just as we wanted it, sincere, with true love and joy. Irina Pavlovna was the perfect mother of the groom, elegantly dressed and politely greeting all the guests. She made a beautiful toast to our happiness. But in her eyes, when she looked at me, I could still see the unease that I had noticed at our first meeting. After the wedding, Maxim and I moved to a small but we rented a lovely apartment near the city center. Our life together started with all its joys, trials, and discoveries of each other. We both kept working in the East Trade and steadily climbed the career ladder. I was promoted to senior analyst, and Maxim headed the technical support department. We were young, energetic, and full of plans and hopes. But Irina Pavlovna's shadow, her silent disapproval, and her reticence at our rare meetings cast a shadow over our happiness, especially for Maxim, who loved his mother very much and suffered. I was really feeling the tension in our relationship, and I did my best to keep it together. I was always friendly and respectful with Irina Pavlovna, and I never complained to Maxim about her behavior. But inside, I was growing annoyed and offended. Why can't she just accept me and give us a chance to become a real family? The situation became even more tense when, about a year after our wedding, the company announced a major deal. A new division specializing in digital business transformation was being created. It was a promising, innovative move. The area and management teams were on the lookout for talented folks eager to take on new challenges and lead this area in the right direction. I've always been interested in new technologies and have followed trends in business digitalization closely. I even took a few extra classes on the subject. So, when they announced they were looking for a team for a new division, I jumped at the chance to apply. The selection process was a bit of a journey, with several stages and some complex tests. I gave interviews and presented my ideas for digital development, sharing all my knowledge and passion for the topic. I put my heart and soul into it, and I was thrilled and amazed when I got the position of Deputy Project Manager. It was a big career leap that involved a big salary increase and a lot more responsibility. When I told Maxim about it, he was really happy for me, proud of my achievement, and he supported me in everything. But Irina Pavlovna, who probably knew about my promotion before I did because of her position, reacted quite differently. When we met at a family dinner a week after my appointment, she was a bit on the cold side, and reserved. "Congratulations on your promotion, Anna," she said in a tone that was neither warm nor sincere. "This is a big responsibility. I hope you will cope, and that it won't have a negative effect on your family life." "Thank you, Irina Pavlovna." I replied, trying to ignore the hidden prick, and I'm sure I can balance it out with my family. I have a wonderful husband who supports me in everything." Maxim felt tense and hurried to change the subject. But after dinner, Irina Pavlovna became even more critical and picky. She often called Maxim and asked if I was working too much, if I was neglecting my household duties, and if he had enough of my attention. I know how hard it is to have these conversations. They can be so upsetting, and it's hard to know how to balance everything. I felt like I was in this situation between my mother, whom I loved, and my wife, with whom I wanted to be happy. At the same time, I was more and more immersed in work. The new project was exciting and interesting, and it required all my strength and attention. I often stayed in the office, and sometimes worked on the internet on weekends. I also constantly read special literature to keep up with the latest trends and technologies. Maxim was really understanding about this, and I could tell he missed our time together. He never held it against me, and he never asked me to pay less attention to work. But sometimes I could see a little sadness in his eyes when I said no to going to the movies or out to dinner with friends because I was busy with a project. I felt really torn, because I wanted to be a good wife, but I also wanted to reach my professional potential. Irina Pavlovna's hints and feedback, though meant well, made me feel a bit guilty, making me wonder if I was prioritizing correctly. One evening, after a long day, I came home to find Maxim on the phone. His tense posture and the tone of his voice made it clear that he was talking to his mum. "You're not fair. Anna works so hard, and not just for herself, but for us and for our future. She's such a wonderful wife, so attentive and caring. I'm so happy with her. Why can't you just accept it and be happy for me?" Pause, during which Irina Pavlovna obviously said, "No, it's not so," Maxim continued. And although he sounded a bit irritated, he still sounded friendly. "You compare Anna with yourself when she was young, but this is a different situation. At a different time, we find a balance that works for us. Please don't get involved." Another pause, longer this time. "Okay, Mom, I get it. I have to go. Anna should be back soon. Good night." He hung up and turned around, only now noticing me in the doorway. His face reflected a whole range of emotions. "I understand that you might be feeling a bit embarrassed, annoyed, or tired. How long have you been here?" he asked. "Just came in," and I replied, taking off my coat. We started talking, and Maxim sighed and rubbed his face with his hands. I knew that meant he was extremely tired. "Mom is worried about us. She thinks that you work too hard and that our marriage is suffering because of it. What do you think?" I inquired with a warm smile, gently approaching him and placing my arm around his shoulders. "I think I love you, and I'm so proud of you and everything you've achieved. We both work hard, but we always make time for each other. And even when my mother gets involved in something that's not really her business, I feel so grateful for her support." As I held Maxim's arms around me, his kind words of love and encouragement, I felt the weight of the day start to ease up. "Don't let yourself lose hope for your career or your marriage. Keep on trying, and I know you can make it happen." I whispered, "Your support means more to me than you can ever imagine." We stood there with our arms wrapped around each other in the middle of our small kitchen, and I thought about how lucky I was to have my husband. I felt so grateful that he was supportive of my career and that our marriage was strong. In the following months, the situation with Irina Pavlovna only worsened. She became even more critical and openly expressed her disapproval of my career. When we met, she could say something like, "Anna, you look tired. You probably work too much. Maxim deserves a wife who will meet him at home with dinner and not come after him." Or, in my day, women understood that family was the main thing, A career will never warm you at night or support you in old age. These comments are always made with a polite smile, but they still hurt. I was really struggling with confidence issues. I felt like I was neglecting my marriage because I was so focused on my career. Maxim saw how much this was affecting me, so he tried his best to protect me. He even got into an argument with my mother, and he started seeing her less often to avoid conflicts. But this only made the situation worse. Irina Pavlovna accused me of. Meanwhile, I was working on a new project. I was completely immersed in creating. We developed a digital strategy for the company, and I was so excited to work on new products and services. I really enjoyed building an effective team, even though it was a lot of work. I was working almost 7 days a week, often coming home when Maxim was already asleep and leaving when he was asleep. I was still sleeping, but I tried to find time for our marriage. We agreed that one evening a week, no matter what, was our date night. How much work do we have to get through each day? Just the two of us, no phones, no talking about work. No interference from the outside world. These evenings were my saving grace, my anchor in the rough. They helped me deal with the professional challenges and family conflicts I was facing. One evening, when we were sitting on our balcony, enjoying a glass of wine and a view of the night city, Maxim suddenly asked, "Anna, my dear, are you happy with me?" I looked at him with a warm smile and said, "I'm so happy, and I'm sure you are too." "Why do you ask? Do you understand?" He paused, looking off into the distance. "Sometimes I think you could have done so much better without all this, without having to balance between work and home, without the constant pressure of my mother needing your attention and time." His words struck me as sincere and vulnerable. I never thought he could question his role in my life. He can consider himself an obstacle to my professional growth. "Max," I gently took his hand and said, "My dear, you are not an obstacle. You are my support, my source of strength. I can't imagine what I'd do without your love and support. You give me confidence and calmness. You believe in me, even when I myself don't. I can't imagine my life without you. I don't want to imagine it." He squeezed my hand, and in his eyes, I saw tears. "I'm so afraid of losing you." In a soft, hushed tone, he shared, "Sometimes, it feels like my mom's right. Your career might pull you away, and in the end, you'll see that you deserve more than a simple IT job and a mom with a few issues." I gave him a warm hug, pulling him close. I said, "Maxim, I'm sure you'll never do that. I love you so much. You're kind, smart, and funny. You understand me without saying a word. And you're just like your mum. She's always worried about you and wants the best for you. She doesn't see that I'm the best for you. Just like you're the best for me." We sat for a long time, embracing, looking at the stars, and knowing that nothing could stop us. At that moment, I promised myself that I would do everything I could to make our relationship with Maximum last. It was so important to me, and I didn't want anything to get in the way of that. But even so, life threw us some curveballs. 2 years after I became Deputy Project Manager of Digital Transformation, our team was doing really well. We'd already achieved a lot and gotten a lot of recognition from the company and from other businesses, too. I had this experience that completely changed my professional life and my relationship with Irina Pavlovna. She's the CEO of Vostok Trade, and she's a very smart and strategic person. I'd been thinking about creating a new company for a while, and I was so excited to share that I finally had the chance to do it. A few days after the announcement, I was called to the CEO's office. I felt a mix of curiosity and anxiety as I walked there. A call from the CEO could mean anything from a friendly reminder to an exciting new project. Andrei Viktorovich greeted me with a warm smile and offered to sit down. He said he's been watching my work since the day we launched the digital transformation project. He told me I've shown myself to be an exceptionally competent, energetic, and productive manager, and that the team has achieved great results under my leadership. I'm so impressed with the amazing results you've achieved in such a short time. What's even more impressive is your ability to see the big picture and not just your own area of work. I'm excited to offer you a new position because I know you'll do an incredible job. I was waiting for more details, but I couldn't wait to share this exciting opportunity with you. As you know, we are launching a new project, and I would love for you to be its leader as CEO. I felt like the ground was slipping out from under my feet. I've been CEO for 30 years. It was more than I could have dreamed of, more than I thought possible at this stage of my career. I don't know what to say, I mumbled, trying to get out of my head. I'm not sure what to say. 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 Andrei Viktorovich, please tell me what you're thinking. I know you'll do your best, and I trust you to not let us down. This is a big responsibility, and it'll be more work than before. But I know you can handle it. Thanks for trusting me. I said this, feeling a bit better. This is a huge honor, and I'll do my best to meet your expectations. I'm not sure I can, though. Andrei Viktorovich gave a nod of affirmation. We'll be announcing your appointment next week, after the board of directors has had a chance to meet and discuss. In the meantime, it'd be great if you could start thinking about the team, the strategy, and the first steps. This is your project, your company, and you have plenty of freedom to build it according to your vision. When I left the office, I was feeling a mix of emotions: pride, delight, fear, doubts, anticipation. I immediately called Maxim to share the news. He was delighted, congratulated me, and said that he always believed in me and that I deserved this promotion because of my work and talent. We agreed to celebrate this event in the evening at our favorite restaurant. But among all this joy and excitement, I couldn't help but think about how Irina Pavlovna would react. She always criticized my career orientation on the news that her daughter-in-law, I'm a little worried that Laura will become the CEO of a subsidiary company. I'm afraid this might make her more negative towards me, and I'm worried that it might make our relationship even more difficult. I'm wondering if we should tell your mother yet. I told Maxim on the phone that we should wait for the official announcement and let everything settle down. Maxim paused for a second and said, Anna, this is great news. Mom will be proud of you. He'll see that you've worked so hard for a reason. You're really talented and valuable to the company. I was a little doubtful, but I didn't want to argue with Maxim. I didn't want to overshadow his joy for me with my fears. Good, he said. I said, a bit hesitantly, whatever you say is best. We agreed that we would tell Irina Pavlovna about my new appointment next weekend when we go to her for a traditional family dinner. But as often happens, life has made its own adjustments to our plans. The next morning, I was surprised to find that my assistant, Lena, had brought me to sign several documents related to the staff of the department was going through the documents, and I noticed the signature on one of them. It read Irina Pavlovna Vera, which I recognized as the head of the HR department. I was surprised to see her name there, and suddenly everything made sense. From the very beginning of my work in the company, I had known the head of the HR department as Vera Nikolaevna. But it wasn't just a first name, it was a patronymic name. which I didn't understand at first. That strange combination of first and last name, Vera Nikolaevna Verena, was a special connection between us. I knew Maxim's mother, just like Irina Pavlovna. Unlike some, I never attached importance to her last name. She was her all this time, the same wonderful woman who conducted my very first interview at the company, coldly assessing me with her penetrating gaze, the one who was skeptical about my candidacy. I was surprised to learn that her daughter-in-law would be taking on the role of deputy project manager. It's hard to accept, but I'm trying to understand all the implications of this change. It's made me realize a few things about her. She's had a hard time with me from the start. She's always had a bit of a critical eye towards my career, and her behavior at work has been a bit odd, as if she barely knows me. I'm not sure if she saw me as a threat or if she was just trying to keep her personal and professional lives separate. Either way, it was a bit of a shock to the system. I didn't know how to react or what to do with this information. I decided to wait until the evening to talk to Maxim. He had to know the truth, and then we would decide what to do. All day, I was on pins and needles, constantly looking at my watch, waiting for the moment when I could return home and talk to my husband. And finally, the working day was over. I came home and found Maxim in the kitchen. He was preparing dinner and drinking something under his breath. When he saw me, he smiled and came over to hug. "How was your day, Director?" he asked, in a light-hearted and playful tone. "Strange," I replied, giving him a warm hug. "Very strange, Maxim. We need to talk." He pulled away, his eyes showing concern as he looked at me. "Something happened? Problems with a new position?" "No, it's not that." I shook my head. "It's about your mother, Maxim. Do you know where she works?" He raised his eyebrows in surprise. "In some large company that handles personnel? And what? And the name of the company? Do you mean Vostok Trade or something like that?" Maxim shrugged. "She doesn't really like to talk about work." "And why do you ask?" "You ask, and I'm deep in thought." I let out a sigh because this is the same company where you and I work. "Today, I found out that your mother is Vera Nikolaevna, the head of the Human Resources Department of the Vostok Trade." Maxim looked at me with a surprised expression. "What are you saying? My mother is Irina Pavlovna, not some Vera Nikolaevna." "Irina Pavlovna, Vera," I gently said. "That's her name, and she's at work." "I'm not sure why, but her name is Vera Nikolaevna." "I'm not sure why, but today I saw a document with her signature on it." That's when I realized that she's the same person. Maxim was shocked, and I felt the same. I was wondering why she didn't say anything. Why didn't she tell me that we work in the same company? "I didn't know that, Maxim." I gently interrupted him, hoping you could help me understand this. Maybe she said something that could explain her behavior. He shook his head, but I could still see that he didn't think it was like that. "She was always very reserved when it came to her work. I knew she was in a leadership position on the staff, but I never asked for details. I thought she just didn't want to talk about it." "And you've known her for a long time, but you only found out today," I said. "I'm honestly at a loss for what to do with this information. I'm not sure how to act moving forward." Maxim paused, thinking about the situation. "We should talk to her directly." He finally decided to find out why she was hiding the truth from us. "I'll call her right now." "I'll invite you to talk." "Are you sure this is a good idea?" "Maybe it's better to wait until the weekend." "When?" "No," Maxim said firmly. "This is too important to delay. I want to know the truth, and I want to know it now." He took out his phone and dialed his mother's number. The conversation was short, and judging by Maxim's face, tense. When he finished, he looked even more puzzled and upset. She already knows about your appointment. He said that she didn't want to talk to us about her job because she didn't want personal relationships to affect professional ones. She's not happy that you're going to be a director. She thinks you don't have enough experience for this position, and that the management decision was hasty and ill-considered. I felt angry inside, thinking that she thought I was incompetent. No, that wasn't what she meant. She tried to explain her maxim, saying that she was just worried that I would be too difficult and take on too much responsibility. I didn't buy it, though. I knew Irina Pavlovna Viernikovna too well to believe her when she said she was worried about my well-being. It was probably just a way of expressing her hurt over the fact that the young daughter-in-law was. I was surprised to learn that the law she never approved of was more successful at the company than she was. I couldn't understand why she kept it from us that she worked at East Trade. If she didn't want personal relationships to affect professional relationships, I thought it would be better to just say so directly. I felt like this strange double life was a sham. The next few days were filled with tension. At work, Irina Pavlovna continued to act like we weren't acquainted at all, keeping her professional distance and not letting on about our family connection. I decided to follow her lead, even though the whole situation felt a bit strange and out of character for both of us. The weekend we arrived, we sat at the table and chatted about some casual stuff, being extra careful not to. The topic of my new friend's work. It was a little strange, but in a good way, that we all worked for the same company. I could see Maxim was having a hard time, stuck between his mother, whom he loved and respected despite everything, and his wife, who he wanted to be happy and honest with. In the end, when we were already having tea in the living room, Maxim, I understand where you're coming from. But I really need you to understand that we can't keep pretending like nothing happened. Mom, why didn't you tell us that you work in the East Trade? And why didn't you mention that you know Anna from work? Irina Pavlovna placed the cup on the table. Her hand was slightly trembling, but she managed to muster a smile. I didn't think it was important, she said in a calm and friendly tone. My job is my job, and my personal life is something I like to keep separate. I prefer not to mix these areas, but it looks like they're mixed up now. Would you like to sort it out, or should I do it? Maxim objected. But Anna didn't take it personally. She received a new assignment and was excited to get to know her colleagues better. You'll be working closely with these new people. How will you support them as they adjust to this new environment? Irina Pavlovna looked at me, and I could see a new depth in her eyes. She wasn't just expressing disapproval, but also curiosity and warmth. I'm sure you'll agree that we'll act professionally, just like we do with fear or uncertainty, she said with a warm smile. At work, Anna is the CEO of a subsidiary company. That's all she is to me. At home, we'll try to be a family like we used to be, Maxim exclaimed. Mom, but you weren't particularly happy before. You always criticized Anna, and you made it clear that you didn't approve of her because you thought she was too ambitious and career-oriented. Now that all these cards are out, maybe you can finally tell the truth. Why do you really feel this way about Anna? Irina Pavlovna was silent. I looked past us and saw how tense her shoulders were and how tight her lips were. Finally, she spoke, and her voice sounded muffled as if from a distance. I see myself in her as a young, ambitious, talented person, ready to do anything for the sake of a career. And I know where this leads. Maxim and I exchanged puzzled glances. What do you mean, Mum? In a tender tone, Maxim asked Irina Pavlovna. I'm worried about something. I'm trying to decide if I can work all the time, build a career, be a good wife, and a good mother. I worked all day, and I was so busy proving my worth at work that I forgot to prove my love at home. I'm trying to figure out how to balance it all." She paused to collect her thoughts. "When your father died, I realized how much I care about you. I'm realizing now how much time I've spent away from my own goals. I've been so focused on my career that I've neglected my family. When your father passed away, it hit me how much I'd missed. I'm trying to make up for all that time I wasn't there for you and your family. I promised myself that I would always put my family first and never make that mistake again." When she looked at me, I could see sadness in her eyes. "Maxim told you that you worked in the East Trade, and I was worried that history would repeat itself. I was afraid you would make the same choice and prioritize your work over family. Maxim will stay away, just like his father did. I decided not to tell you that we work in the same company so as not to complicate the situation or create additional tension." I listened to her, shocked by this revelation. I would never have thought that behind the coldness and pickiness of Irina Pavlovna hid such pain, such fears, and such regrets. "Irina Pavlovna," I gently replied, "I totally get where you're coming from. I really do. But we're not the same person, and our situation is different. I love Maxim, and I'll never put my career before our marriage. Yes, I work hard, but we find a balance. We support each other, and I'm ready to compromise if my passion for work starts to hurt our relationship. People warned us about that early on." Irina Pavlovna shook her head. I said the same. "But, you know, when you're busy with your career, success can get a bit out of hand. At some point, you realize you've lost something more important, something more valuable. Your family." Maxim spoke up. "Hey, I totally get it. You can't expect me to understand your experience with our marriage just because it's different for us. We're all unique individuals with our own lives and relationships. Look, I do miss Anna sometimes when she's late at work, but I'm so proud of her and her accomplishments. I totally get her ambition, and we make sure to find time for each other, even with all the craziness at work." Irina Pavlovna looked at us for a long moment, as if she was trying to see something deeper than what we were saying, as if she could sense the trust and confidence we have in each other. "I want to believe you," she finally said. "I want to believe that you can hold on to what you have, even when things get tough. Trust me when I say that a career, especially in high-ranking positions, isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle that can truly change a person, their priorities, and their values." "We'll be careful, Mom," Maxim promised. "We'll make sure that work doesn't completely consume us. And I'd like you to support us in this, to not create additional difficulties with your disapproval." "I'll try," she said. "I know it won't be easy, but I'm here to help you overcome whatever challenges you might face. We've all got old habits and fears, and I'm here to support you in overcoming them." That was the end of our conversation, but I felt that we could do this together. I'm so happy to tell you about the changes in our relationship with Irina Pavlovna. For the first time ever, she opened up to us, showing her vulnerability and her true motives. It didn't solve all our problems, but at least now we understand each other better. I'm thrilled to share that next week, my appointment as CEO of a subsidiary was officially announced. I received so many congratulations from colleagues, partners, and the management. Even Irina Pavlovna met me in the corridor and congratulated me in a dry but accurate way. In my new job, we kept up the professional courtesy that we'd always used, but something about the way she looked at me and spoke to me felt different. Maybe she started to show me a little more respect because she saw that the company's leaders really appreciated my professional qualities. Or maybe our conversation over the weekend made her think again about how she felt about me. Either way, It became a little easier to work without always feeling like my mom was judging me. My in-laws were always very interested in what I was doing and why. I put my heart and soul into organizing a new company, forming a team, developing a strategy, finding an office, and solving legal and financial issues. It was an exciting, but also a very challenging time. I worked more than ever, often brought work home with me, and spent weekends at the computer. Maxim supported me as much as he could, realizing that this period was particularly stressful for me. But he also sometimes expressed concern about my workload. "You haven't slept properly for a week," he said, leading me to my laptop at 3 a.m. At 12 a.m., Anna was gently told, "Honey, you can't do that. You'll get a little sicker. I'll take care of the organizational issues." I said, "Then it will be easier." But I know it didn't get easier. The new company demanded more attention, and I felt so tired, physically and emotionally. But I couldn't afford to slow down, not now when so much was at stake and so many people were counting on me. During this difficult period, there was an incident that changed everything. It was the end of the quarter, the busiest time of reporting and planning for the next period. When I was meeting with investors, I practically lived in the office. I'd come in early in the morning and stay late into the night, working hard to make our new company shine. We had a big presentation planned for potential investors, and I'd spent weeks getting ready for it. I collected data, looked closely at the market, and figured out a plan for growth. The success of this presentation would decide our funding for the next year, our staff expansion, and the exciting new projects we had in the works. So, on that day, I made sure to get to the office extra early. Around 6. I made sure everything was ready for the meeting at 0 o'clock. I set up the meeting room and prepared the equipment. I wanted everything to be perfect. The building was still almost empty. There were several security guards, cleaners, and a couple of workaholics like me who came early to work in silence before the start of the general workday. I was focused on my tasks when I heard a commotion in the corridor. Looking out of my office, I saw one of the office workers, Sergey, hurrying with a tray full of coffee cups for the morning. The management meeting got caught on a stretched wire, and poor Sergey was in a panic. The tray slipped out of his hands. The cups broke, and hot coffee spilled all over the corridor, creating a large puddle. "Anna Sergeyevna, I'm sorry. I didn't notice the wire," he muttered, trying to pick up the pieces with his hands, which was not only useless but also dangerous. "I don't know what to do. The cleaning lady should come only in an hour, and I need to urgently bring new coffee to the meeting." I stopped him. Seeing that I could quickly, I found a bucket, a mop, and some rags in the back room. "Hey, why don't you go make a fresh pot of coffee for the management, and I'll take care of it," I said to him. He looked at me with a surprised expression. "Anna Sergeyevna, you're the director. You're not your job," he said. I smiled at him. "Now, this is the most important job. I've got to get this done, or my investors might walk in a puddle of coffee." "Sergey, don't waste any time," I said. He nodded hesitantly and hurried to obey my order. I left alone and began to clean up the spilled coffee. It wasn't the most pleasant task. The coffee was hot. The fragments flew far away, and the puddle was bigger than I expected, but I didn't see anything special in it. I just saw a human desire to help in a difficult situation and to solve the problem quickly and efficiently. I was almost done cleaning when I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was my son, "Who married you?" I turned round and saw Irina Pavlovna looking at me with an expression that mixed surprise, contempt, and something else. "I thought you were an ambitious manager, and you were cleaning the floors," she continued, speaking in a way that was loud enough for several people in the hallway to hear. I felt my face flush with color. Not from shame, but from anger and resentment. As she could boldly talk to me, even at work. She was always so formal. And I was about to respond when Andrei Viktorovich, the general manager, appeared in the corridor. He was accompanied by several investors in expensive suits. They had come to the presentation earlier than planned. "Anna Sergeyevna, here you are," he said. Andrei Viktorovich interrupted, not noticing the tense scene. "Let me introduce you to our guests, gentlemen. This is Anna Sergeyevna, our new CEO of the subsidiary company I told you about. As you can see, she is a person who is not afraid of work." Smiling, he turned to Irina Pavlovna, who was frozen in shock. "Irina Pavlovna, would you be so kind as to escort the guests to the conference room here?" While Anna Sergeyevna was getting ready for the presentation, Irina Pavlovna's face went as white as chalk. She nodded her head back and forth a little bit, and then she put on her most professional smile. She said to the guests, "Please follow me, gentlemen. The conference hall is already prepared." She gave me one last look, and I could see that she was shocked and confused. Then she led the guests away. I stood there, leaning on the mop, trying to. My mother-in-law, a woman who has always been so concerned about propriety and professional image, just publicly humiliated me. Then, for a long time, I found myself I was in a very embarrassing position, having to follow my instructions in front of important clients. It was so realistic and so unexpected that it seemed almost unreal. Andrei Viktorovich came up to me. "Everything is fine, Anna Sergeyevna. You are ready for the presentation." I took a deep breath, collecting my thoughts. "Yes, Andrei Viktorovich. Everything is ready. I will be in the conference hall in 10 minutes after the guests." I quickly cleaned myself up, checked the presentation, and entered the conference hall with my head held high, trying not to show how shocked I was by what had happened. The presentation went well, despite the morning mishap. I was on my A game. I stayed focused, confident, and presented our strategy clearly and persuasively. I answered all the investors' questions with ease. In the corner of the hall, Irina Pavlovna sat, not participating in the discussion. I could feel her eyes on me, but I couldn't tell if she was confused, angry, or maybe even recognizing me. After the presentation, Andrei Viktorovich shook my hand and said that the investors were very impressed and ready to support our project. It was a win, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. I was thinking about what had happened to Irina Pavlovna. I'm sorry to say that it didn't help me. They didn't let me know what was going to happen or how it would affect our professional relations or family ties. I was really worried about what Maxim would say when he found out about everything. Irina Pavlovna avoided me all day. I saw her several times in the corridors, but she pretended not to notice me, quickly disappearing around a bend or entering some office. I understood that the conversation was inevitable, but I didn't know how to prepare for it or what to say. At the end of the workday, when most of the employees had already gone home, there was a knock on the door of my office. "Enter." I let her know that I had a feeling about who it might be. Irina Pavlovna came in, closed the door behind her, and stood there, not sure what to do next. She looked a bit older, tired, and uncertain. "Can I talk to you, Anna Sergeyevna?" she began, her voice warm and friendly. "Of course, Irina Pavlovna. Have a seat." I gestured to the table in front of my desk. She sat down with her hands folded in her lap and was silent for a while, as if thinking about what to say. "I want to apologize for the morning incident." At last, she said that my behavior was unprofessional and unacceptable. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. But when she gave her formal apology, it sounded like she was talking to a stranger and not to her son's wife. I let my personal feelings affect my professional behavior, and I know that's not okay, she continued, her voice gentle and kind, especially for someone in my position as a human resources manager, who should set an example for all employees. I accept your suggestions and apologize, I replied calmly, but I'm more concerned about the personal side of things. Why did you say what you said? Why did you see me helping an employee fix the situation? You decided that this was an occasion for ridicule or humiliation? Then Irina Pavlovna started, as if my words had struck a chord with her. I do not know, she said gently, her voice tinged with emotion. It was spontaneous. Maybe it was the surprise of seeing the CEO with a mop in his hands. Or maybe it was those old prejudices. Those old fears. I'm not proud of this, Anna. Really not proud. Her eyes showed sincere remorse, and I felt my anger start to fade. What took its place was a sense of understanding. Perhaps even compassion. I'd love to know what you think is the strangest thing about this situation. I said that you're criticizing me for doing exactly what you once did yourself. I put my work above everything else. I sacrifice my personal time and family relationships for my career. And at the same time, you're criticizing me for not being afraid of dirty work. That I'm ready to pick up a mop if it's necessary for a business, like as if you don't know what you want from me. Irina Pavlovna looked at me with a long, thoughtful look. Maybe you're right, she said kindly. She said, suddenly looking at you with a smile, maybe I don't know what I want. I see myself young in you, and it scares me. I see in you what I didn't become, and that's scary. I'm afraid for my son. I'm afraid he will be unhappy like his father was. But today, when I saw you with this mop resolutely and without embarrassment, cleaning up spilled coffee, I suddenly realized that you are not like me. You are somehow different on the inside than I was at your age. You are not afraid of anything. You don't think your position gives you the right to look down on others. And maybe that's why I'm so grateful that I can maintain a healthy work-life balance now. Her words really resonated with me. It was the first time she really opened up to me. And it was such a beautiful moment of sincerity after all this time we'd been dating. I was a bit speechless, and I'm still figuring out the right words to say in response to this unexpected vulnerability. Pavlovna, I started off a little hesitantly, but I'm here to say that I'm in no way better or worse than you. I'm simply a different person with a unique set of experiences and circumstances. I truly appreciate your honesty. It helps me understand you and your motivations better. I could see it on her face. You know, it's not easy for me to admit my mistakes. She said that she had always been proud of her strength, independence, and ability to make difficult decisions. But in the most important decision of her life, how to build a relationship with her family and her son, she had been wrong. It's not just me, Irina Pavlovna said, looking at me for a long time, then nodding as if she understood. Making some decisions. You're so right. The first thing I'll do is stop playing this strange double game at work and at home. I'll stop pretending that we barely know each other. We're family with everyone. But family. Maybe it's time for us to start behaving accordingly. I would be happy for this. I really wanted to be sure I understood, so I said, one more thing, she added. I'll only say this one time, so listen up. I was wrong about you. You really deserve your position and your success, and I'm proud that you're my son's wife. It took her a long time to admit it, and with that, she left the office, leaving me feeling a mix of surprise, relief, and, I'll admit, a little bit of doubt. The change was a bit too sudden. The admission came as a surprise. Could I really trust him? Was it just a passing emotional outburst? Or would it soon give way to the usual coldness and criticism? When I got home that evening, Maxim was already waiting for me. I could see that he was aware of what had happened. Mom called. He said that when he gave me a hug, he told me about today's incident. She seems really upset and remorseful. Yes, we talked after the presentation. I nodded. It was a strange conversation, Maxim. It seems your mother first saw in me, not the enemy. Maxim looked surprised and delighted at the same time. You know what she said to me on the phone? That she was proud of you. All these years, she was wrong to judge you. She was biased, hoping that it wasn't too late to build a real family relationship. I smiled, feeling the weight that I'd carried in my heart. Everything these years are starting to recede. I would really like this, Maxim, for you. For us, for her. To live in constant conflict is so exhausting. You know what else she said? Maxim shared that she's planning to send a letter of resignation. She wants to avoid any awkwardness at work and make things easier for you. This came as a bit of a surprise to me because I always felt like my mother-in-law was watching every decision I made. I know it would have been easier. I understand that Irina Pavlovna was a valuable employee and an experienced professional, and I'm concerned that her departure could have a negative impact on the company. I really don't want her to leave because of me, I said with a smile. This isn't fair. We can find a way to work together while respecting each other's professional boundaries. I thought you would say that. Maxim smiled warmly and said that she thought you might not be as excited about it as she was. She asked me to let her know that she'd give it some more thought, but that the final decision would be made by Sama. Over the next few weeks, my relationship with Irina Pavlovna really blossomed. At work, she remained professional, but the artificial distance that she always tried to maintain disappeared. She didn't imagine we were just getting to know each other. She could ask about Maxim during the work break, and sometimes she even asked for my advice on personnel issues, showing that she trusted me as the head of the family. At family gatherings, she was more relaxed and open. It took time, but we were able to get to know each other better. There were moments of tension, but that's normal. It's natural for old habits and behaviors to take time to change, but I could see that she was really trying, and it made me want to be more patient and understanding too. The most amazing thing for me was how these changes in her relationship with Irina Pavlovna influenced Maxim. He seemed to flourish, becoming more confident and more calm. I was only now beginning to understand the burden he had carried all these years, torn between his beloved and his family. He loved his wife and mother, but they just couldn't find a common language. I was working on a new company project, which was really exciting, but also a bit stressful. I was recruiting a team, developing strategy, negotiating with clients and partners. It was a lot, but I was learning so much. I often stayed in the office until late at night, took work home, and skipped weekends for important meetings or projects. In the future, I was hoping things would get easier. At that moment, I realized that I might be moving in the direction Irina Pavlovna had warned me against. I was devoting so much of my time and energy to my work that it was starting to affect our relationship. I noticed that I was spending less time with Maxim, less interested in his life, and less engaged in his issues. We were still living in the same apartment and sleeping in the same bed, but our connection was fading. It was hard because Maxim never held me responsible. He never asked for more attention or more time. He knew how important what I was doing was, and he was proud of my achievements. But sometimes, when I cancelled our plans again because of urgent work, I could see a shadow of sadness, disappointment, and loneliness in his eyes. One evening, when I sat up too late over reports and came home long after midnight, I found a note from Maxim on the kitchen table. "I think we need to talk. Let's talk about us. About our future. Tomorrow night, we have a dinner planned in Little Italy, and I'd really love for you to be there." This is so important to me. The note made me worry, because Maxim never was one for drama or ultimatums. If he wrote such a note, then I know the situation is serious. I've decided that I'm not going to cancel tomorrow's dinner, even if I have to miss an important meeting. The next day, I found it challenging to focus on my work. My mind kept going back to Maxim, his note, and our relationship. I felt a sense of regret for what I had overlooked and wasn't paying attention to while I was busy with work. I wondered if I was making the same mistake as Irina Pavlovna in her time. Was I prioritizing my career over family happiness? After lunch, I decided to go to my office, and I was surprised to find Irina Pavlovna there. She looked at me and said, "Not Pomshay?" she asked, standing in the doorway. "No. Of course," I answered, surprised by her visit. "Come in." She sat down opposite me for a while, silent as if collecting her thoughts. Then she spoke. "Anna, I really thought about it for a long time, and I finally decided that I should say something. I totally get what's going on with you and Maxim. I can see how you're getting more and more absorbed in your work, and how he's getting more and more distant. I've been through this myself, so I totally understand." I wanted to say that she's exaggerating, that everything is fine with Maxim and me, but I just couldn't go through with it, and I felt really bad about it. "Maxim invited me to dinner today and said I left a note saying that we need to talk." Irina Pavlovna nodded as if she agreed. "I'm so glad he decided to talk about it instead of keeping it to himself like his father did. But Anna, I want you to understand him now, with your mind. He's at a crossroads in his life. Just like his father was all those years ago. He's trying to choose between his own happiness and yours, between his own interests and yours. I love him, and I want us to be happy together." Then show him that. Just like Irina Pavlovna said, not with words, actions. Find a balance that you might be searching for. Show me that you can be successful in your career and happy in your marriage. I believe that you can. You are stronger than me, wiser, and you really love Maxim. I can see it now." With these words, she got up to leave. At the door, she stopped and added, "And one more thing, Anna. I've been thinking, and I've decided not to quit. I'm going to stick around at least until we can show you and me that we can work together while respecting each other's professional boundaries. I think it's really important that you have someone to take on some of your responsibilities so you can spend more time on your personal life." I looked at her, this complex, contradictory woman who had been a source of stress and self-doubt for me for so long. And now she was offering me support and help. Life can be so ironic, can't it? I thanked her sincerely for talking, for offering help, and for taking care of Maxim about us. She smiled, nodded, and left me alone with my thoughts. And these thoughts were disturbing, forcing me to think about priorities, values, and what it's so important in life, you know. This evening, I was so happy to get out of work early, even a little earlier than usual. I stopped home, changed into my favorite perfume, Maxim, and put on my most beautiful face. I arrived right on time at the restaurant, sitting in the corner with a glass of wine and a thoughtful expression on my face. When he saw me, he smiled, but it was a little strained and uncertain. "Did you come?" he asked. He said, "I would love to get up and kiss you." "Oh, of course," I replied. I replied, sitting across from him. You said it was important. He nodded and took a sip of wine, as if collecting his thoughts. Anna, I want to be honest with you. The last few months have been tough for me. I understand how important your job is to you, your new position, your projects. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you. But sometimes I feel like I'm losing you, like my job is taking you away from me, piece by piece. His words were like a punch in the gut. Although the truth is I was expecting something like this. Max, I'm sorry, but I have to stop you. Please, let me finish. This is really hard for me. I thought for a long time about how to tell you. I was offered a job in another city. It's a very interesting project, and the conditions and opportunities for professional growth are great. I thought about this offer for the last 2 weeks. I thought about all the pros and cons. I felt like the ground was slipping out from under my feet. He thinks about moving without me. This is the end. He wants a divorce, and I decided. Maxim looked me straight in the eyes and said, I understand that this offer is not something I can accept. I can't leave you. I don't want a long-distance relationship. Distance relationships are tough. They're not often successful. I don't want to be apart from you, even for a little while. I love you, Anna. I always have, and I always will. Tears are welling up from the relief of love, from the realization of how close I was to losing the most precious thing I have. But Maxim paused. I can't go on because now I can't just be a shadow in your life, someone you remember when work ends. I want to be a partner, a husband, a friend. I want us to be. We built our lives together instead of living parallel lives. I reached across the table and took his hand in mine. You're right, I gently said. No, I don't. I realized how I had strayed from the things that truly mattered in the pursuit of professional success. I had grown apart from you, from us. Even today, your mother came to me, worried about the same thing. She saw signs that I missed being passionate about work. Maxim looked surprised. Mom, she came to you? Yes. I nodded. And you know what the most amazing thing is? She was on my side, our side. She doesn't want me to repeat her mistakes, doesn't want you to experience what your father experienced. Maxim shook his head, but there was hope in his eyes. And what do you think we should do? Change? I just answered, not right away. You can't snap your fingers and I'll try to find a balance. I'll spend more time with us. I understand that a career is important, but it's not a substitute for the happiness of being loved and loving in return. We talked all evening, openly and honestly, without fear of hurting each other. We talked about work, family, and there. We chatted about our future kids and everything that goes into that. We talked about our fears, hopes, dreams. And with every word, every minute, I felt the closeness, the understanding, the connection that had begun to elude us in the past return. On our working days, when we got home, Maxim hugged me so tightly, as if he was afraid to let go. I missed you so much, he said. In a tender whisper, he said, for the real you, not for the businesswoman who sometimes runs home to change clothes or sleep for a few hours. I missed you too, he added, his voice warm and gentle. I admitted that I just didn't understand. I didn't allow myself to think about what I was missing. That night, we loved each other as if we were rediscovering each other, getting to know each other again, and falling in love all over again. And I realized that no professional success, no position, no money is worth sacrificing this incredible sense of closeness, belonging, and absolute happiness. The next few months were not easy, but I learned to delegate tasks that I previously thought I know how hard it is to do everything on your own. It takes a lot of effort, time, and sometimes you might feel resistance and doubts. But I really tried my best to do it. I started leaving work at a reasonable time, except in really critical situations. I stopped taking work on weekends, if it wasn't absolutely necessary. I learned to say no to extra work projects that could wait until the opportunity to spend an evening with Maxim, watch a movie, just talk, or cook dinner together. Irina Pavlovna was so kind and helpful. She really went above and beyond, taking on some of the admin stuff for the new company staff. That saved me so much time. She was a strict but fair leader, and the employees really respected her. I had complete trust in her skills. Our family life also changed. We started seeing Irina Pavlovna more often, not just on Sundays. We'd often meet for lunch, but sometimes we'd just meet for coffee, too. We'd chat about work, life, and everything in between. She was such a great conversationalist. She had a lot of interesting experiences, a sharp mind, and a wicked sense of humor. Maxim was happy to see how our relationship was changing. The tension was going away, and the cold politeness was being replaced by real warmth and the mutual respect. He was blooming before our eyes. He became more confident, more calm, and more happy. His career was also going up. The new head of the IT department was appreciated in the company. He was trusted with complex projects. He shared his thoughts, and we took them into consideration when making important decisions. Our subsidiary company did really well under my leadership. Of course, there were some challenges, but my team was strong, the projects were interesting, and our customers were happy. I found great fulfillment in my work, enjoyed the process of creating something new, meaningful, and useful, and still had time for a personal life and for our relationship. After a year of such a balanced life, when Maxim and I celebrated our wedding anniversary in the very restaurant where he once proposed to me, he suddenly asked, "Anna, my dear, have you ever pondered the possibility of starting a family?" This question wasn't too surprising. We'd talked about kids before, but only in the abstract, like it was something that might happen someday. But now, his voice was full of certainty, like he wasn't asking about the distant future but our immediate one. "I've been thinking a lot lately. What about you?" He said he feels it's the right time for us to expand our family, especially when I see how calm, balanced, and happy you are. Our careers are stable. Our relationships are stronger than ever. And even with your mum, you have a great relationship. What can I say? I thought about the idea of a child, and it made me feel warm and fuzzy inside. But I also felt a bit scared about juggling motherhood with a career and other responsibilities. But now, after learning to balance work and personal life, I feel more confident and ready for this important step. "I would like to try," I said, looking into his eyes. "I know I can't promise that everything will be perfect, that I won't make any mistakes, or that there won't be any difficulties. But I want to see Maxim's face light up with joy and love. And I want to see my heart ache for him." At this moment, I realized that I had made the right decision. This is really what we both want and are ready for. We didn't put it off. A few months later, I was delighted to find out that I was pregnant. Maxim and Irina Pavlovna were overjoyed. And when they found out that I was going to be a grandmother, Irina Pavlovna burst into tears of joy right in my office. It was such an unexpected, uncharacteristic moment for her. And I couldn't hold back the tears either. "I'll be a grandmother." With a warm smile, she said, "I'll be a grandma." What an incredible blessing pregnancy has brought. It's allowed me to make some changes in my professional life. I couldn't work as fast or as intensely, and that was totally okay. My company was so understanding. They offered a more flexible schedule and the chance to work from home a few days a week. Irina Pavlovna, the head of HR, made sure I had all the documents I needed to make sure my rights were respected. And the work is still here waiting for me, she told me, and I'm so glad she did. This period in your life is unique, and you should enjoy it to the fullest. I really enjoyed being pregnant. It was easy, and I felt great, full of strength and energy. Maxim was so kind and attentive, but not overbearing. I needed that support, and he was there for me. He went with me to doctor's appointments, helped choose things for the baby, and read books about parenting and child development with me. Irina Pavlovna was also so caring, but never intrusive. She always respected our decisions and our personal space. She brought me useful products and shared her experience, but always with the caveat, you know. This really helped me out, but each one of them was always different. Pregnancy is such an individual journey, and you know best what works for you. One weekend, when I was already 7 months pregnant, we were all sitting together on the terrace of our newly purchased house. It was small but cozy, with a garden and a view of the river. It was a warm autumn day, and the sun was shining. The golden leaves were falling, and the air smelled of the season. Irina Pavlovna said, I often think of the day I saw you, Anna, the day I said those awful words, and it was you who married my son. I tried to stop her, to tell her not to dig up the past, that all this is long. She gave a soft shake of her head. No, I want to say about, but that day changed everything. Seeing you in that situation, hearing that you were the new CEO, was a real shock. All my ideas about you, all my prejudices, just fell away, and I started to see you for who you really are, smart, strong, but at the same time, he's modest and ready to help, not considering any works below his dignity. I began to understand why my son chose you and why he loves you so much. Maxim put his arm around his mother's shoulders, and I saw how his eyes glistened from unshed tears. Then I was not yet ready to fully accept you, Irina Pavlovna continued, her voice warm and gentle. There were so many fears, prejudices, and pride. But the day was the beginning of the path to understanding, to acceptance, and to our present family relations. And today, looking at you both so happy and loving, waiting for a child who will soon make our family even more complete, I can only say one thing. I'm so thankful for that day, that moment, and that incredible insight. Otherwise, I might never have experienced the joy of being a truly part of your family. Her words touched me so deeply. I remembered all the challenges we faced, all the misunderstandings, and all the insults, and I realized that I didn't regret anything. All of it was necessary to get to where we are now. Mutual respect, understanding, true family love, and support. Thank you, Irina Pavlovna, I said, barely holding back tears. Pregnancy really made me more emotional than usual. I want to thank you for being so honest and for having the courage to admit mistakes and change. It's not every day that someone does that. She smiled warmly, thanking me for my patience and for giving her another chance. She didn't push me away or turn away, even though she had every right to. Maxim gave us both a big hug, and we stood close together under the warm autumn sun, waiting for a new life that was soon to enter our world. In 2 months, we had a daughter, little Sophia. She was beautiful, perfect in every way. Movement, from the very first minutes of her life, she became the center of our universe. She's a source of endless joy, love, and, of course, care. Motherhood changed me, as it changes every woman. I became more sensitive, more attentive to details, and more patient, but at the same time, I became more determined. especially when it came to protecting the interests of my family and my child, Maxim. He was such an incredible father. He was gentle, caring, and involved in every aspect of his child's life. He could hold his daughter for hours, talking to her, singing songs, and telling her stories. He got up at night, changed diapers, bathed her, dressed her, and did all this with such pleasure and such naturalness, as if he had been born to be a father. Irina Pavlovna turned out to be the perfect grandmother. She could sit next to them, and they could sit with her, too. I spent hours in the cradle, watching my sweet Sophia sleep with a beautiful expression of pure joy and emotion on her face. She was always there for us when we needed help, but she never tried to boss us around. She respected our parenting methods, our decisions, and our rules. I went back to work, but in a different role. I started to cherish every moment spent with my family. I learned to set priorities, and I realized that my career was. This is important, but it's not worth it if it means your family won't be happy. I worked more efficiently and productively, but not longer, and the company did really well under my leadership, which shows that I was a good leader. Today, a few years after that memorable incident in the office corridor, I look at my life and can't help but smile at the irony of fate. Who would? I've thought a lot about how even the toughest moments can lead to something really beautiful. Maybe that's the main lesson of my story. Even the most difficult times and painful trials can bring us closer to happiness, understanding, and a real family. We're going to make some changes, and we're going to do it together. We're going to be open, honest, and ready to change and forgive. I'm holding our sweet Sophia in my arms, watching Maxim and Irina Pavlovna chat about something on the terrace. I feel so right about everything that has happened. All the decisions I've made, and all the difficulties I've gone through. I'm so happy to be here with you, and I know that this is just the start of our adventure. We're all going to face challenges, but we'll get through them because we're a family. We'll always have each other's backs, love each other, and remember what truly matters in life.